Hey guys, welcome to the Richest Real Estate Agent Podcast, where there's way better metrics in life to measuring rich than just GCI. We're going to talk to the top influencers in real estate and top influencers in the mindset space. We're going to break down the emotional intelligence needed to be successful as an agent and stay there for 20 years. Welcome to the show. Let's get at it. Hey guys, we are back. We have someone on our show today named Philip McKernan. If you don't know Philip McKernan, I'm glad to introduce you. He has been a mentor of mine for many years. We have climbed Machu Picchu together. We have my very first surfing lesson. There's been many times where there has been a lot of challenge that has come my way. He's helped me be me, probably more than most people I know on the planet. I'm very excited to introduce you if you don't know him. And if you do know him, you know what you're probably going to get. It's going to get extremely real, extremely thoughtful, very intuitional. And he has a way of navigating a conversation intuitively that just hits the bullseye almost every time. So I appreciate you coming on, Philip. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. You brought a surge of emotion when you mentioned Machu Picchu. Not that I had forgotten, but you reminded me of it, and it was just like, what an experience that was to share it with you. Yeah, what an experience.
That was the first time my wife and I went on an experience together too. That was a pretty interesting dynamic. Let me tell you, she went to Guatemala with you first.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, that was so. So on that note, ADD for a second. Is there another trip coming like that when this COVID thing blows over? You've got to be. You went to India. You went to Guatemala.
I'm feeling a lot of our work and our events are going to be Ireland based for many reasons, not just because geographically we're here, but because of the place we're creating, the space, the land, etc. for that. But there is this little itch inside of me, and I'm a big component, proponent of scratching those itches. We may talk a bit about that in the context of experimentation. I am feeling one more brave adventure somewhere in the world, whether it's back to India one more time or whether it's a different destination. There is no doubt in my mind it has been brewing. In fact, I just had a conversation with Pauline about 4 days ago, and I'm just kind of setting the seed that this might happen, but we'll trust and see if it unfolds that way.
Can't wait to hear. There's nothing like it, man. It's so cool. People are probably like, what is this story? What's going on? There's no context to the show. So why don't we just set that up? We'll do it the right way. Philip, why don't you, I know this has been something you've always been trying to define. You have carved out your work in no industry and in every industry. It's almost impossible to say, hey, Philip, yeah, what's he do? Is he a business coach? Is he a life coach? Yes and no on both. Is he a healer? Is he a marketing guy? Yes and no. Like, it's like, so how do you describe your work, Philip? Now that's been so many years. I've experienced it and it's life-changing. How do you explain what you do, Philip?
Yeah, it's probably not the answer that either you want or people expect, but the reality is I don't have an elevator speech. I don't have a 30-second, kind of contextualizing sentence that summarizes what I do. What I've realized is that my work meets people where they're at. So depending on where you're at in the journey, my work can speak to you or not, as the case may be. I think if we're in a frenetic early stages of our life where we're just trying to make money, I'm definitely not the guy that's going to appear in your horizon, and you're not ready for me and I'm not ready for you. And I don't mean that in a condescending way. It's just our paths are not meant to meet. But if you get to a point where you realize that there is a part of you that isn't showing up in the world, that isn't being illuminated, that isn't getting to play in the sandbox, and you have a sense that that has a degree of meaning that no money can ever bring to the table, but you're not sure how to just get to it, then I'm your guy, in the sense that, I can hold space, I can challenge very deeply. I've got an eclectic mix of clients, from professional athletes, which sounds sexy, but that's not my core, nor is it my core passion. No disrespect to any athletes who watch this that I've worked with in the future. I've worked with some really high profile clients, but it's what I would call everyday individuals who are just looking to create more meaning in their life and who want to truly leave the world in a better place than they've left it, or they've found it, I should say. And for me, it's like digging in and really understanding who we are at the core. What are our gifts in the world, and how can we go out and impact the world in ways that we understand, in ways that we can't quite comprehend right now.
I think it's cool how you work, because you almost lay that out and people are like, I don't know what it is, but I need to talk to Philip. And I feel like that's I get that a little bit as well. That feeling of like there's just a connection, right? Like it's when the time is right. So Philip, first let's hit right on the castle. I want to top. This is the current affair. Yeah. If no one's watching the YouTube side of this, he's just brightened up like a light bulb when I say castle. He's smiling away. And tell me, you bought a castle.
Yeah. Well,
What the heck?
I thought we bought a castle, but I realized that the castle in some respects found us, and that might sound really weird to some people. And that I thought we had a plan to bring the castle back to life. And then I realized that the castle has the plan. Our job is to shut up as much as we can and listen to what it's trying to tell us. The place has been around for, at the very minimum, 600 years or so, but they believe that there's been activity on the land and community on the land, for many more hundreds, if not longer, years. So we basically became stewards of this magnificent place about about technically legally 12 months ago, I think last week. And our job is to, bring it back, to restore it, bring it back to life, and then present it to the world, where we might have small groups coming in from different parts of the world to heal, to grow, and then to emerge out of that place as a better leader in the world that can go back out to different parts of the world and lead as a father, as a mother, as a leader, as a writer, as a business person, etc. So that's the idea of the castle. And as I said, I feel it's been waiting in the wings for many hundreds of years for us to come along.
Feels right. You've been running retreats. You've been doing this forever. And for you to have a castle, if anyone knows Philip, it just is like, well, yeah, of course. Like, I'm surprised he hasn't bought a castle earlier. So honestly, man, it's very exciting for myself to watch, not from how cool the castle is, just to think about what you're going through. And it's really cool to see you, like, it just seems so right. And it's just almost like your own therapeutic growth of, I don't even know what I'm talking about, but it just feels like it's cool to watch you go through that.
It is, and I won't lie, Ben. There are days, less days as we move further into the project, where we wake up and we feel like we're out of our depth, out of our league, out of our comfort zone, and we do question on occasion, was this the right idea? But I do feel that we're compelled to bring this place back to life, and that is our job for the very, very short period of time that we're on this earth. And the last thing I'll share is, as I said earlier on, I wasn't joking when I originally thought we had a plan, and I thought we could kind of imprint our personality into the castle, the grounds. There's 22 acres of woodland and the energy of the place. And what we realized is that what every decision we're making, and it's easy to say this, but there's great depth in this idea of thinking generationally ahead. Native populations in North America used to think there was an idea called the 7-generation concept, I think it's called, which basically, chiefs are encouraged to think 7 generations in advance before they make a decision. In Japan, they often have businesses that have a 500-year strategic plan. So it's about, when we're planting trees, even picking the types of trees, these native pines that had been thought to be extinct for thousands of years, we're not thinking about where we're going to plant them today. We're imagining how they're going to look in 100 years, well after we're gone. So that's the kind of thinking we're trying to remind ourselves every day to bring into this place.
Wow, that's so cool, Philip. I just wrote it down, a 500-year plan. You want to talk about busting the mind barriers? Like, that is so cool. Thank you for that. I think
but even with your listeners, you don't have to have a castle to do this.
That's what I mean.
I would love the guys and girls to think about not even a plan, but like, what am I doing today that will have some vibration in the world in 500 years from now? And I tell you what, the number one thing that does for people is it can make people sad, it can make people angry, it can make them excited, whatever. Forget about all those. But what it does is it allows you to detach from the minutia that we get caught in, like almost the ego, the centralization of all of these thoughts and ideas. And it gets us outside of ourselves to think a little bit bigger in the context of the world. And I find that can be a really exhilarating process.
Fresh. That's so fresh. Love it. I love it. I think I always say I'm just going to change the world, starting with me. And that's why I think it resonates with me. And it's like, I'm going to think about and meditate on this, and nothing to do with the castle. It's just looking, not just 1 or 2 generations. Like that's really cool. That's big. I love that. Thank you for that, Philip. So this podcast is really about helping real estate agents connect to a life that's vibrant, they love, turning their business into an absolute servant to the life that they want to live. It's a great business to do that, but it also eats a lot of people alive.
Yep.
Relationships. I know that you've come from the real estate background, so I'd love to get your angle and your thoughts on a few things. But first, out of the gate, because we're branded this as the richest real estate agent, what is rich? What is the definition of being rich, Philip?
Well, that's something that's definitely changed over the years for me. I think rich for me is being surrounded by people that you love, and that being surrounded by people who love you. And I don't mean thousands, I don't mean millions of people. I just mean a small group of people. But as many real estate agents will find out in the future, or have found out already, or in the middle of finding out, that often in the pursuit of an economic gain, in the hope that that economic gain gives you freedom to go and live the life you do want to live, you wake up one morning, you look around, and it can be a really lonely world. It's also a very lonely business, even though real estate agents are public facing and their faces are on billboards, they're out meeting people every day, hopefully. And yet it can be a very isolating, very lonely existence, real estate agents, like really, really lonely.
That's amazing. I love that. Now let's play this game here. You're starting a. This is not what you want to do, but let's play the game. You're starting a real estate training program, Philip. Here's a weird question. Hey, what are the two things that would be your focus?
If I was delivering the training?
Yeah, you're teaching real estate agents using Philip McKernan's filter. What does it look like if you just the two focuses that you would be focused on?
That's a phenomenal question. Number one is I would be asking, I would bring them through a series of questions and exercises to understand themselves at a level of depth that they have never been in touch with before. Number one. And number two is I would then ask them to create or recreate a business model that allows them to show up in that way, shape, or form. In other words, not to differentiate between the personal Ben and the business Ben, the personal Philip. And my daughter said to me, Ben, you're going to love this. My daughter said to me the other night, she did something, said something. And I said, Maggie, if you don't mind, can I just comment on this or whatever? And I was just sharing my thoughts. And she looked at me, she said, Dad, you can stop right there. This is not a life coaching moment. My own daughter, she's 10 years old. But I said to her, I said, Maggie, the unfortunate thing for you is you didn't come into a family. My wife didn't marry a coach or a human. She just married Philip. And I am the same at home that I am on the stage. So I said, you just got to get used to that. There is no difference. I find that a lot of agents put on the uniform, whether it's a suit and the mask, and they burst out out the front door in the mornings, and they work really hard to be something that's not an authentic representation of who they are at the core. And I think real estate agents then they blend into all the other real estate agents with the same strategies and everything else. So to me, it's understanding who you are and beginning to show up in the world like that. And I feel that that will keep you really honest, and I believe it'll bring a degree of success with it as well.
That's amazing. It's really great advice, Philip. I love it. It's a really funny thing. It reminds me of when I do a social media, training, Ben style. I'm not teaching how to do posts. I'm teaching the psychology of it. And I say, okay, guys, I got 40, 50 agents on the call. And I'm like, okay, guys, everyone pull out their phones. Let's just go live for just like a minute or two. And it's the most incredible psychological reaction. Like this emotional friction just shows right up. Like you got the odd guy that does it, but everyone's like, are you kidding me? I'm like, aren't you wanting to be seen? Like it just goes right. It's the best way to trigger. Oh, you're hiding. No wonder your business is not where it needs to be. You're literally hiding. You can't even show the world 1 minute of who you really are without packaging it and polishing it. And it just reminds me, it's literally 95% of agents are hiding behind their brand. And it's like, oh, I can't go live. And it's just an awesome exercise. And I think about that when you say show up, because what it is, you'd undercover it right? You'd find that thing for them. And then the thing is, though, now they have to show people that. And that's the work that I usually find myself in, going, okay, now that you got who you are, let's go tell someone who you are. It's, well, I can't really do that.
Then there was a time we ran a coffee business. My brother started it. I joined him afterwards. And there was a point where we were under very significant pressure financially because the overheads of the business were growing and the sales weren't necessarily growing. And it was tough. And there were sometimes a man or a woman or a couple would come into the roastery, and my job was to show them around and to show them the place and show them the equipment and show them the coffee. And on occasion, you'd meet somebody where you could just tell straight away that this was not going to work for them. Not that they didn't have the capacity to make it a successful business, but they were going into it for the wrong reasons. And they didn't understand why they were going into it because they didn't understand themselves. Yeah. And I remember one couple going, guys, do you mind me asking you, it's not really my place, but like, why are you doing this? And they had this romantic idea of having a coffee shop and everything being awesome. And I basically questioned them to the point where they're going, do you not want to do business with us? I said, no, I do if you do this. But what I don't want to do is get you to sign a contract and to meet you in a year from now. And you look me in the eyes and go, we just made a huge mistake. And whether we can pay you or not is irrelevant. And I had at least 3 to 4 people over a period of 4 or 5 years. They didn't execute. But here's the extraordinary thing. And I didn't do it for this. Every one of them referred us multiple times. We tracked it back. Every one of them made sure that when their cousin was opening a coffee shop, they weren't saying, hey, you should talk to Phil McKernan. They're going, if you don't deal with this guy, there's something wrong with you. Yeah. They have this extraordinary sense of loyalty and appreciation for the honesty. And I think that there is that energy whereby sometimes if we don't get the listing or we don't sell it in a certain time, there's this frenetic thing that we don't trust. A lot of real estate agents don't trust the next listing is going to emerge. That trust is not about listings. That trust is they don't trust in abundance. They don't trust the universe. Arguably, they don't trust themselves. And that's another thing I would love to shine a light on, or for them to shine a light on, is this answering this question when you think about trust and as it relates to you. Do you trust yourself? And I guarantee you most of them will say no to that or not fully. Therefore, how do you expect anyone else to trust you? It's not possible. Like, to the extent that you need it to differentiate yourself in a business that needs soul and personality, introduce it into it. It just hasn't had that historically.
Based on trust.
Correct.
Like the entire thing is based on trust. Yeah. And if what you're describing, if you're living that life where it's almost like you're driving a Ferrari that's rented and telling everyone you own it. And that's the energy that most agents are showing up with, because they're not being themselves. They're not trusting themselves. They have to try to be what other people want them to be. This is a big conversation. So let me ask you, let me keep it moving. You have it's funny, hey, Philip, talking real estate together. It's funny. It's such an origin story connection, but I think it really matters because you can relate to these people. And you came from Ireland, directly coming to Canada as real estate investor was your compass. You know, you got on the stage of the real estate network, investment network, and you started building out a fund. Like, okay, so I want to take that, Philip, whatever, 15, 20 years, whatever it is, take that mentality. How did you view real estate then when you were in the game? To how do you see real estate investing, real estate industry as a whole today? What's changed, Philip? Tell me about your perspective change.
Yeah.
That'd be a big question, but hopefully you can get it.
Yeah, real estate was the answer for me. And it was the only answer for me. It was build enough real estate, make enough money, build enough wealth, so I can then someday in the future go back to or go and find out who I really want to be or find out what I want to do when I grow up, type of thing. And I had it was a distorted picture based on misleading information that I put both of my hands up and take responsibility for. There was a lot of rhetoric around, you know, build real estate, become wealthy, and everything's going to be okay. And I bought into that. And I say I bought into it. Not being brainwashed, I bought in. So I take full responsibility. Yeah. And I saw it as an answer. And and I knew it was a great asset class. Like I knew it was an amazing asset class. And there's something very earthy around real estate because it can be a home, it can be a place to rent, which can also be a home. It can be a place to do business, a place to laugh, a place to cry, a place to mourn, a place to stay warm. There's so much depth to real estate in many respects. But I saw it as not even the answer. I saw it as a tool, not even a tool. I saw it was an answer to all of my issues, of which I had many and still do have lots, but way more then. And where I see it now is I see it as a fantastic asset class. The castle is technically a property, even though we don't see it energetically like that. I see places differently now. I don't see them as with a dollar sign over the door. I see what it can create, what it can do, what it can nurture, and so on and so forth. And I don't know what else I can say, Ben, on that, other than, yeah, I saw it as a means to an end, where now I look at real estate as a kind of a sacred place in many respects. And I think if we were to treat it like that, we're looking at going on a holiday, is maybe a safari, whatever thing in the future. And we had this girl on the call. Sorry, let me tell you a better story. I was up buying chairs, and I wasn't even buying chairs. I was invited to this man's workshop. And he said, I would love you to come to my workshop, Philip, and allow me to introduce you to my chairs. I went, what? And I went up, and long story short, we commissioned him to hand make these stunning chairs. And when I went up to pick them up, literally last week, he said, it's time for me to say goodbye to my chairs.
Oh, wow.
He has this spiritual connection. Now it's slightly different because he's making them with his hands, but I was walking away with a part of him. And I feel that if real estate agents said, listen, before we look at any listings, what is it about a home that speaks to you? Tell me what it means to you. What are you looking? What do you want to feel when you walk in the door? People are going to look at you and go, did you just ask me what I want to feel when I walk in the door? Yes, you'll get the odd person thinks, hey, you're a wacko, get out of here. But most people, you speak to their humanity. And what they'll do is they won't just list with you. There's no one else in the world they can list with, because you didn't just listen to them, and I'm pointing at my ear, you heard them, you felt their humanity. And I feel that if we can bring that into the conversation in real estate and give it a name, the energy behind a property, I think we will have a better experience ourselves. And I also think people will have a better experience with us, which will mean that we'll do better in business.
It's awesome. It's the missing factor. I always say start with the referral, not the sale. And just start with how do you get that person to refer? Well, that's called relationship. I find it funny, Philip, in a business that everyone whips it off their tongue. Oh, I'm a relationship guy. It's a relationship business. And I'm like, but there's no training in relationships in the entire industry. Yeah. Zero. Like, you're literally saying we need to get 100 relationships at scale. Like not just, you know how hard it is to just build one? Real estate agents show up and they got to build 500. It's like you need a lot of relationships, and it's like no one's teaching how to do relationship in a real estate world. It's how to close them with techniques. And it's like, it just that's what irks me, and also why I'm in this industry, I think.
Hey guys, Ben here, real quick, realestaterebootcamp.com. This is where we're helping real estate agents who are busy, who are maybe getting a little disconnected from their family and the life that they wanted to live before they got their license. They need systems, and they need to get their business to serve them versus getting trapped in their business. They need systems, they need help. Jump on a call with me, realestaterebootcamp.com. Cheers. Back to the show.
Yeah. So Philip, couple other questions. I want to get into, how you think and who you are. And I feel like a lot of people chase opportunities. Okay. And I think about the psyche of people making decisions, and I look at them thinking, has there ever been a time in your life where you had a no-brainer logical win and something didn't feel right and you said, no, I want to hear a story. You probably never have done this. Yeah, right. This is like literally Philip. But I'm just curious, because many people have amazing logical plans and real wins, but they're not the right answer. I want to hear about that.
I have, my whole life is littered with it. Running our flagship Everest coaching program. At one point, I think we had 4 programs, 4 events. It represented 97, 98% of our revenue, if not 100%.
I remember.
And I went to my wife and I said, I wasn't asking her permission. Excuse me, I was just letting her know. I said, I'm shutting Everest down. And she goes, what? And I said, I'm shutting it down. She said, well, what are you going to do? Like what's going to fill the void? I said, I don't know, but it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be magnificent. And it turned out that there's lots of things that emerged on the back of me doing that. You know, coming back to Ireland, I mean, people say, what a strategic plan that was. You know, you're going to be in the States for 4 years, Canada for 9 years. You're going to come back to Ireland. You're going to buy a castle because they're everywhere and they're for sale, which is not true. No, we got on a plane to come back and look at this property with the view of going back and continuing in America then to continue to drive our business, which, by the way, we were just like, we were really taking off. Like we were we were hitting real strides relative to our modest size. You know, I still see us as a boutique coaching business, but we were really starting to like take off. And the logic would have been go back to America, spend 5 years, do up the property from abroad, then come back when you really kind of make hay while the sun shines. And I said, no. So I know we left money on the table, but it's not about the money. It's about feeling what is right for you and trusting that. And ironically, we had our biggest year last year in the middle of COVID when 95% of our revenue is live events. And because I believe, and I'll just use the universe as a reference point, you know, it's God, but whatever it happens to be for you. I think the universe is constantly maybe testing or watching us. And I sometimes feel that the universe will give us the crumbs and it'll keep flicking us crumbs until it knows we're serious or we're dedicated to something. And then it will give us the whole goddamn cake. And I really feel that's my truth. So when you have a sense of knowing, there's something extraordinarily peaceful with something that you know. It's not something you think. It's not something you think about. It's not something you even have a sense of conviction. It goes beyond conviction. It's a sense of being guided at the deepest part of our souls. And it's very, very difficult to listen to that because of trust or a lack of trust in self. And secondly is because of busyness. Busyness is very convenient for people who don't want to stop and really reflect. But the latest one is this property up the road, 5 minutes from where I am. It was not the best financial decision on paper, but we were compelled to do it. And we upped our entire life and our family to come back to our homeland. And by the way, the most difficult move I think we've made is not from Ireland to Canada, Canada to the United States. It's actually, ironically, one of the biggest and most difficult moves for us has been coming home. It's very difficult to come home. It's very difficult to be at home when you're at home. You know, somebody said the prophet is never recognized or seen or heard in his own land or her own land. I don't see myself as a prophet, but it's been really interesting to stay true to who you are in the midst of an environment that wants you to change. And it's been I'll maybe just leave it at that.
I think it's very thought-provoking. Yeah, very thought-provoking. You've said some real amazing things you got to sit and think with. What is enough, Philip? What is your enough?
Yeah, I struggle with that one, Ben. Now, this is enough. This is enough. I think it's getting to a point in your life where you have a healthy sense of self-love and a healthy sense of pride in who you are and who you've become and the work that you do. And it's not coming externally, it's coming from within. It could be a spiritual well that ultimately is referred to, you know, other sources. But I'm at a place, and I don't want to come across as I'm at a perfect place, because I'm not, but enough is I've always struggled with. But I think it's the first time I've been asked that question directly, and I commend you on the question, but it's maybe not the first time it's been asked in different ways, but it's definitely the first time I've sat here and I closed my eyes just for a minute and I could feel this sense of this is enough. I'm onto a special dude who I've had the pleasure of journeying with in aspects of your life and witnessing you grow up. I've got a guy who gives a shit about humanity in an industry that, you know, somewhat is dubious whether they do. Is dedicating his life to doing that. I'm looking at the Atlantic Ocean, Ben. When I lift my eyes, and not that I'm ignoring, I'm looking literally at the Atlantic. I'd move my camera, but it's not sexily set up like yours, so it'd wreck the whole setup. And I have a coffee in my hand. My 2 kids are outside, and my wife is in the kitchen. It's pretty epic. This is enough right now.
Love that so much. If anyone would like to see the video, you need to look at Philip's face and feel the energy if you don't feel it enough. Yeah, Philip, I've gone through the same thing, man. Like, you know, I spent a lot of time thinking, like, being ridiculously driven, you know, feeling that empty void of not getting it as a child and desperately looking for love, trying to make that shit happen one way or the other. That doesn't work. And yeah, I realized through some pain that I've got a wife that, you know, pretty in love with, and we love each other, and I've got kids, and I'm at the Pacific Ocean, which is kind of funny. I'm looking at the ocean, get to hang out with you and get people in my life that, man, they really care and love me, and I've got to affect their lives. Philip, I always think as a hockey player, I like make it sound like I'm a really good hockey player. So as a top hockey player in the world of beer league, and but what I'm saying is that I think about it like this. I used to live my life as if it was overtime. And sometimes I'll slip into that, but I used to live my life because in the overtime, if you have an injury, you keep playing.
Yeah.
Like you freaking wrap that shit up, put some cortisone shot in there, you get out and you play. Even if you're got a broken arm, you are going to move, because any misstep, you're going to lose. And that was my mentality for so many years. And I can slip into it. The old shadow shows up still. But I realize, what is it like to play what is it like to play as if we've already won? And it's like I through a lot of pain, those thoughts are formulated, and it's like, okay, don't forget, Ben, you've already won the game. And it's like, so what is enough is something I try to stay connected to, because it's easy, especially when opportunities come in. And when you are really good, and it's like this focus of being not just, oh, I'm going to be grounded and balanced. It's deeper than that.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think about other things like what motivates people. What I find, Philip, is that people are teaching how to do things. Okay. So you got Google already dominated that. You can't teach any more than Google. And what I've spent most of my work on is how to connect people to what motivates them versus giving them too much how to. And so I'm very fascinated, because the example I would say is, we all know how to lose 10 pounds. And every freaking human wants 10 pounds off. Not sure what it is, but everybody knows how. And you try 1,000 different ways, but all you need is a doctor to tell you you're going to get diabetes, and then 10 pounds comes off instantly. So I'm very, very focused on what are these motivators that actually create change? Like, what is it? And pain might be the one, but it might be something else too. But what drives you, Philip?
Love. And you can listen to any podcast I've ever done. I've never said that before. What drove me for years was pain. And what drove me for years was preventing pain in other people's lives.
Yeah.
I feel that this phase of my life I'm driven by a love of people, a love of life, a love of impact. I am just driven to my core. I love people so much that I will go to bat for them in a way that very few people will in the world towards them, certainly themselves for sure. And it is absolutely driven by a sense of love. And the other thing I'll say, and I was going to say it earlier on, I hesitate with this sometimes because it might sound seriously woo-woo and weird, but I think one of the biggest shifts for me, Ben, has been in the last couple of years in terms of a sense of deep peace in myself, is that I used to say this, but I didn't believe it or feel it. But I feel that there's a sense of the work is kind of flowing through me. And I think I shared this once before with you, but it's almost like I'm just this vessel that shows up in the world, and that there is this. And I let go recently at an event, and I connected to something way bigger than myself, way more powerful. In fact, I just in that few moments with this tunnel vision with this other human being, it's one of the most powerful coaching moments I've ever experienced. I actually wasn't even present. It was quite extraordinary. So this sense that you're not that important in a way, and yet I talk about pride and love and knowing that you're important in a sense, but that's a very special place to go. But what drives me is love.
I think about listeners and I think about communication, and I think love is a really fucked up word though, Philip. Okay. And I understand, me and you already understand. I understand that. And maybe I'm not fully understanding yet. I'm still learning what love is, but I want you to describe what love is in your definition. I know that might be hard, but people have been, love is so fucked up. Like, oh, it's all love. I just really want people to understand what you're really saying. What is love? Like, what is, because romance, sex, movies, like love is being so desired that everyone's painted a picture of it. What's your picture?
I think it's the deepest form of acceptance. It's it is being able to feel that it's being able to. So people often say, if you ask my wife, what's my number one skill? And apparently people say that I'm very good at what I do, but let's assume for a moment that's true. And you say to my wife, okay, you know him so intimately. What is the number one thing that Philip McKernan does or has, or what strategy, or whatever? She will say he is the most extraordinary listener she has ever come across in her life. And people say to me, okay, well, how do you listen then? I go, it's not even about listening. It's about hearing, to the point where when there's a client in a room with me, I'm not listening to what they say. I am, but I'm hearing into their soul. I'm feeling almost connected to what they're describing, or what they're unwilling to describe, or what they're saying, or what they're unwilling to say. And I'm connecting to this kind of this source within them. And in that moment, there is not, it's like somebody says to me, if you're angry with somebody, picture them as a tiny baby, and see if you can still be angry with them. It's the same type of principle. And to me, when you're in that moment, it's not about kissing them. It's not about having sex with them. It's not about snuggling them. It's about just this deep, intimate, vulnerable sense that they allow you to get to, and you allow yourself to get to. And it's a place where judgment does not exist. They could have any color skin, they could have any background, they could have any religious container that they believe in or practice. And there is, I've been in maximum security prisons where I've had moments like this. To me, that is, I've had more love moments in a coaching session or in a prison than I have with most women that I engage with in an intimate capacity or sexual capacity. So love is this sense of seeing and hearing somebody and being actually connected to them at a very deep spiritual level. And okay, so let's bring this back to a real estate agent that's listening from Toronto or Texas or whatever. And they're going, okay, you just lost me. You guys just left the building. Like, okay, I'll just check out now. Yeah. But I disagree, because I feel that if we had a genuine, healthy sense of love for self, and therefore we're able to expand that into people, when you care for people in any business, and you have a love for people, and you want to do right by them, there's a way in which you show up that you don't have to sell. You don't have to give a business card. You don't have to impress. You don't have to drive up with the Mercedes because you want to get the listing, and you have to drop it back at 6 o'clock because you pick up your little Nissan Micra again, or whatever it is. You just show up, and you just show us, you just listen deeply to them and show a sense of compassion and empathy towards them. And I feel that that's missing in so much business right now.
Good. It's so good. Man, do I relate? I'm fully sales trained. I know how to manipulate like the best of them. I have made shit happen because, can't trust a soul. And you get this package where I can do deals. I can crush like the best of them. And that serves you in the front end with finances and awards. But until I learned how to connect, and I still work on it. Like I don't know if that ever is an arrival. Is that to learn how to connect? It's literally what I try to teach now. It literally is everything. It's like, and you can't connect with another human being until you connect with yourself. So let me introduce you to you.
Yeah.
Let me give you permission to be yourself for just a second. I remember Philip. The one time I said to you, I said, I don't know, I'm just ADDing, but we'll go with it. I said to you something like, well, Philip, it was on one of our calls one time years ago. And I'm like, I don't need your permission, but I just wanted to bounce something. And you kind of just stopped me. Actually, I use this example, and that's probably why it's fresh. I just thought of this and I told someone the story in my coaching session. But you said, Ben, it's okay. Like, I know I don't need to give you permission, but I want to give you permission, or something along those lines. And it was therapeutic for me, Philip. I wasn't alone. You're like, no, Ben, it's okay to do that. Because I was so independent and being so used and abused, and I don't need no one to tell me what to do. I'll figure it out myself, and just issues. And you're like, no, Ben, I just want to, I can give you permission.
Ben, I want to thank you for sharing that. I want to share something just happened last night that I heard about, and I want to lead into it with a story. There's a lady that you and I both know. Her name is Donna, and she lives in British Columbia. And long story short, she's an older lady, and I say that respectfully, but she went out on a blind date. She was divorced. She had 2 older kids. She went out on a blind date. And this is about maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. And she got all dolled up. And I don't mean that to sound sexist, that's her words. All dolled up, meaning she put on a dress and she put on nice shoes and she put on the makeup, she did the hair, and she goes out and meets this guy. And I don't know how they did this. I actually kind of think it's kind of cool, but they established pretty quickly that there was no real connection, or there was no real attraction, I suppose. And I think he or she suggested it. They said, well, listen, we booked the table. Why don't we just have dinner, have a glass of wine, then we can go home. And then they did get into, without the awkwardness of expectation in the way, he or she said, well, what is it that you look for in a guy or a girl? And they just had this really open conversation. And what was interesting, she said, hands up, I don't like makeup. I haven't worn a dress for 3 years or 10 years, whatever it was. And he goes, yeah, didn't want to say, but I don't like makeup in women. And I prefer a girl who wears jeans and whatever. And they were essentially describing the person they wanted to be or be with. And yet that's not how she showed up. So in this room, I had a young man here 2 weeks ago. So there's a girl called Ms. and she comes and helps me out in Brave Soul every year in Ireland. And she rang me and says, listen, her nephew is struggling. And would I spend some time with them? So I offered to spend 2.5 hours or 2 hours in my own home. And then I would meet him for a drink that night. And I spent 2 hours the following morning. And I was doing it to support him, to help him out. And this is a young man who is gay in a country that, historically would have had a lot of challenges, coming out and being seen and accepted and everything else. And while the world has moved on a lot, it doesn't mean that he still doesn't feel stigma attached to it. But one of the conversations among many was, who are you at your core? And do you show up like that? And I want to make a point around this. And he goes, well, what do you mean? I said, well, clothing. I bought a pair of red shoes, and I told him this story about the red shoes, and I won't bore the audience right now with it. And he goes, you know what? There's 2 jumpers I have, 2 jerseys, whatever. And one's got like gold cats or something. And he goes, I'm dying to wear that, and I haven't worn it. He said, the other thing I want to do is I want to get an earring, like so on and so forth. So I go away last night and I stay with friends, and then I go and look for stuff for the castle today. And I meet Ms. because I stayed with her last night, and she goes, you won't believe what just happened. And I said, what? She said, my nephew has never been in better form, like as in energy and showing up. He showed up the other night with an earring. He got himself an earring, little earring, and he showed up in a pink suit. And she said, not just did he do it, he owned that shit. And she showed me a photograph of him. And this guy was, no disrespect to him, but he was an ordinary kind of guy in my house. When he is hot as guys go, like he looks stunning in this photograph. And I wonder how many agents in the world wear clothing because that's what they think They drive the car because you can't drive up in a scooter, Philip, for God's sake. Well, what happens if you drive up in a scooter and somebody goes, you've got a scooter? Yeah, well, I hope you don't mind. My car isn't getting fixed, and all they had was a scooter. You lied to them because you're awkward. What if you just own the scooter inside of you? You own that shit, and you become this real estate agent. Go, yeah, this fucker shows up in a scooter. What do you think about that? I'm so jealous. It's not judgmental. They're jealous of who you are. Now, I mean, I appreciate there's certain things like BO and things like that. We don't want to necessarily turn up and stink the place out. But what if you honored the person you are? I feel here's what happens. If I can get this right, I think this is going to make so much sense. We dress and show up to make sure that we get every sale. What if we dressed up and showed up the way we were meant to show up? Guaranteed you won't get every sale, but I think what will happen is you won't just build a listing business or a book of listings. You'll build a community of people that you're their realtor because you're part of. They see the world like you see them, and they see you like and vice versa. Like they resonate with you at a very deep level. And I feel if we just did nothing else than show up the way that we're meant to, I think we'll find the clients we're meant to work with, and they'll refer us to the other people that we're meant to work with, and it'll all be okay.
100%. And I can prove it with about 50 case studies. And the thing is, the one thing I do want to speak to as people listen to this story, I think it's inspiring. I think it's freaking bullseye. But there's a person out there that'll hear this story and go, Cal, be the scooter guy. And I just want to address that. It is not about driving a scooter. It's not about not wearing makeup. It's about being you.
Yes.
And so if you're a Ferrari guy, you better own that mother effing Ferrari as right all the way to the bank. And if you're a scooter guy, do the scooter. If you like a shit ton of makeup on your face, then wear the makeup.
Absolutely.
But the message is this. It's not about being less or more. It's about being you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I hear these inspirational talks and I'm like, people like, oh, I'm going to do that. No, be you.
Yeah. That's
the message. And for so long, I've related Ferraris and wealth to not being me or not being, and it still is not me driving Ferrari. It'd be fun though. But anyways, but the thing is understanding that the mission is me. It's like all these other things. It might fit, it might not, and that's where the permission thing comes in. Just go be you. And that's what we're talking about.
You wear 5 inches of makeup if that makes you feel alive.
Yeah.
But don't wear it because you feel you have to or you should. That's absolutely the key. And thanks for clarifying that. 100%.
There's a lot of logical people, Philip. And I feel like a lot of people get like, oh, 1 + 1, I can do that. I want to do that.
Yeah.
And the last thing is, if you want to take the journey to getting to the place, because I think about that a lot, Philip, we look at the black belt fighters and we don't ever talk about yellow belt and brown belt and the journey. And it's like we fucking celebrate black belt, but we don't celebrate white with a blue stripe. And I feel like this is something I'm leaning into big time in my coaching. It's like we need to celebrate the fact that like these little steps along the way, as big as the black belt in this nation, in the world, we put people that are A-type personalities that have won ultra marathons. They've sailed across the ocean, and we think, let's put those guys on the freaking TV. And I'm like, what about the guy that just decided to buy his old boat and it was just as big as a win? So I just wanted to just add a little bit of this, is that maybe it's just the consideration of taking off the makeup or the consideration to let yourself go to the scooter. I want to start where they're at. They just start 100%. Considering it is a big win. That's the catalyst, the origin story. We forget. I know I forget.
Absolutely. I remember taking all my suits out of the closet a number of years ago. And even coming out of the closet, that term, which is typically synonymous with sexuality. And I'm not even sure it's the most respectful term, but it's a term nonetheless that is synonymous with people coming out around their sexual, preferences, etc. I remember taking all my suits out, looking at them and just going, that's just not who I am. I haven't worn a tie since that day. And it's nothing wrong with wearing a suit. It's just the way the suits were, the ties, the whole lot, it just wasn't me. But yet I felt the need to be that person, to wear those things. And as I experimented with clothing and shoes and different things, I started to find a rhythm about what I felt comfortable in. And I felt more confident, more connected to myself. Therefore, I was better able to serve people. And I do feel it's directly related and connected to momentum and being seen and, referrals and just energy.
Like, Philip, I try to, I've wrestled because I'm so logical and so intuitional. It's just been this weird place. I realize it's actually really cool because there's that bridge, the gap, right? But anyways, yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought there. It happens.
It's okay. That happens to me every day.
Yeah. So yeah, Philip, I think that we're kind of getting near time. I think for the respect of the people that only have a lot less time actually nowadays to listen to podcasts, to be honest, they don't have that commute. And I think about that, but I think we've got a incredible few conversations we've had here, Philip. It's been wonderful.
Yeah,
so
thanks
I think
for having me on. I appreciate it.
I just want to give you a minute or two, just more of a gut, is just leave you with some space to close out. If there's anything you want, if you don't have anything, that's cool too. I just want to make sure I give you a little bit of space. If there's something on your head, could be completely left wing, could be nothing, could be a tactic. I don't care, but just want to leave you with some space to finish out the show.
There's something that is brewing, Ben, in the last month or two in a big way for me, and that is this idea of artistry and creativity. And I think you were in the room one day when a young man let the cat out of the bag and said he plays the guitar, and somebody says, "Oh, you play a tune someday?" And I looked at him and I said, "Oh, you're a musician?" And he goes, "Oh, no, I'm not." And I said, "But you play the guitar?" He goes, "Yeah, but I've never been paid to play." And I just went, wow. And I remember saying to him, I said, I didn't remember getting that text message from the universe that says you have to be paid in order to be recognized as an artist. And one of the most common things I see in, not just in business, but in real estate agents, is a busyness driven by, and I say this with love and respect, a degree of scarcity and a lack of abundance, that things will emerge. And sidelining, like putting it on the long finger, whether it's painting, whether it's poetry, whether it's reading, whether it's whatever, and say, no, I'll get back to that when I build a business to a certain point. And I would so respectfully ask you, and by the way, the last thing I'll say is that, and when they're not there, they feel the guilt to be with their family, the remaining time their family gets. And I get the whole, you've got to build a business, and sometimes you just got to go hell for leather initially, etc. I get that. And they don't carve time out for themselves. And then people go, "You mean to strategize around the business?" I said, no, just for you. When was the last time you played the guitar? I said, "Oh my God, I love the guitar." When was the last time you got on the motorbike? When was the last time you cycled? When was the last time you took out a canvas and painted? When was the last time you wrote a piece of poetry? And they go, "There's no value, direct correlated value between me doing that and me getting a listing." Well, I would respectfully say bullshit. Because what that creative expression does, what that artistry does, is it forces you or invites you to put a value on your own skin. It allows you to create, it gets you out of your head. It allows you to land a bit. It creates a sense of energy inside of you. It promotes, I believe, a sense of abundance. Yeah, I could be strumming the guitar or out trying to get a listing, but I know when I go and get a listing, I'm going to be a better person because I gifted myself this time. And I would strongly ask and invite people to say, what is the artistry I've forgotten, I've given up, or I need to retake up, or I need to experiment with? And it's a way of nurturing yourself in the world. And I would pretty much go on a limb and say, I guarantee you lean in, not like 8 hours a day, lean in once a week, twice a week, whatever it is, just play with it. That in 4 or 5 months, you will be in a better place. And I would be shocked if your business is not in a better place too. But it's the thing that we postpone with the hope of building a business first and then coming back to it. I think we need it in order to build a better business. It's just something for people to think about.
We're going to leave it there, Philip. It's beautiful, poetic, as always. I feel like it's got some really strong energy in this conversation. I think you're speaking to very specific people sometimes, and my gut is like, oh, that's for someone. Sometimes that happens to me, and I'm like, yeah, it's not a show, it's a message. So listen up. Anyways, we'll wrap it up there, Philip. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate you. Bye.
Cheers.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the whole episode. I just want to remind you, realestaterebootcamp.com. This is a place where we're really transforming hustlers into business owners, a place where we're actually designing your life and finding the business model and the style of business that actually is going to serve the life that you want, helping you get really clear on what makes you happy versus just chasing the next deal. That is tiring. It's going to cost relationships. Check it out, realestaterebootcamp.com. Let's chat.